Betrayal by Rich von Halt. The warm spring breeze carried the scent of freshly mown grass as Isaias Eschert and Jules Taradico burst through the hospital's entrance doors, their laughter echoing across the courtyard. Young and carefree, they reveled in the thrill of their mischievous endeavor, their sneakers pounding against the concrete path. Behind them, a security guard's voice boomed, "Hey, get back here!" Isaias glanced over his shoulder, his eyes sparkling with defiance as he clutched something tightly in his left hand, concealed behind his back. Jules mirrored his friend's devilish grin, their shared secret fueling their excitement. They raced through the courtyard, dodging benches and flower beds, the guard's footsteps thundering in pursuit. Isaias's heart pounded in his chest, adrenaline coursing through his veins as they approached a route iron gate. With no choice but to confront their pursuer, the boys spun around, their chests heaving from the exertion. The guard skidded to a halt before them, his face flushed and beaded with sweat. "All right, boys," he panted, his voice tinged with exasperation. "Whatever you took, give it back." Isaias met the guard's gaze unflinchingly, his hand still hidden behind his back. "We didn't take nothing," he declared, his tone laced with defiance. The guard's eyes narrowed as he zeroed in on Jules. "You!" he barked, causing the boy to flinch. "Tell me what your friend took, and I promise you won't get in any trouble." Jules's gaze flickered to Isaias's concealed hand, clutching a bundle of hypodermic needles snatched from the hospital's supply. With a resolute nod, he turned back to the guard, his lips curling into a mischievous smile. "We didn't take anything." Isaias and Jules exchanged a conspiratorial glance, their bond solidified by their shared act of rebellion. In that moment, they were invincible, untouchable, masters of their own destiny, defying authority and reveling in the thrill of the chase. The door flung open, and Jules Taradico emerged into the hallway, his trench coat swinging open to reveal the glint of his detective badge. His hands, stained crimson, holstered his gun at the small of his back. Sunlight filtered through the restaurant's windows, casting a warm glow over the picnic table where Isaias Eschert sat alone. His fingers fidgeted with the rough wooden surface as he nervously puffed on a cigarette, tendrils of smoke coiling upward. Beads of sweat glistened on his shaved head, and his beard seemed to weigh heavily on his face, etching lines of tension across his features. The blue paramedic shirt he wore clung to his frame. The creak of the door heralded Jules's arrival, and he slid onto the bench opposite Isaias. "Hey, you're not going to believe what just happened," he announced, snatching a piece of bread from the basket between them and taking a hearty bite. A waitress materialized at their table, placing a glass of deep red wine before Isaias. "You drinking red wine?" Jules inquired, his brow arched. Isaias responded with a silent nod. "Nice," Jules remarked, his gaze following the waitress as she retreated. "She's cute." A beat passed before he muttered under his breath, "Fuck." Isaias leaned forward, his eyes intent. "What happened?" "Huh?" "Right." Jules tossed the half-eaten bread back into the basket, crumbs scattering across the tabletop. "Can I get a swig first?" He gestured toward Isaias's wine glass, and without hesitation, Isaias slid it across the table. Jules took a deep draught, savoring the rich flavor before setting the glass down with a dull thunk. "Okay, so I'm at Ryam's house." The scene shifted, plunging them into a memory. In the stale air of Ryam's apartment, the petite woman with dark curly tresses pulled the fridge door shut and sauntered over to Jules, who lounged on the sofa, cigarette in hand. Without a word, she straddled his lap, plucking the smoke from his fingers and bringing it to her lips, the ember flaring as she inhaled deeply. Passing the cigarette between them, they nursed their beers in comfortable silence. "We're smoking, drinking," Jules's voice echoed, setting the scene. Cutting back to the present, he glanced at Isaias. "You know, we're hanging out, right?" Isaias gave a curt nod. "Right." She starts telling me how lonely she is and how her man ain't taking care of her the right way. Right? The memory resurfaced, Ryam's words hanging thick in the air. He's never around, and when he is, he ignores me, so I gotta get mine, you know? She exhaled a plume of smoke, her eyes hooded with unfulfilled desire. Right, Isaias affirmed, leaning back in his chair. And at this point, I had a couple of beers, and I'm feeling good. She already started before I got there, so I know she's feeling it. Isaias arched a brow. You're in there. I'm in there. Jules confirmed with a wolfish grin. The waitress reappeared, setting a frosty mug before Jules. Have we decided? Jules scanned the menu briefly. Steak nachos, no beans. All right. She turned to Isaias. Anything else for you? He shook his head. I'm okay, thanks. As she retreated, Jules's gaze lingered on the sway of her hips. Jules! Isaias barked, snapping his fingers. What? Jules blinked, refocusing on his friend. Isaias stared at him, hands open in a silent prompt to continue. Right. The scene flickered back to Ryam's apartment. So she's sitting on my lap. I start caressing her leg and kissing her neck, and right when I get to the goods, we hear a scream next door. Isaias leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. What happened? We go over there. Jules took a swig of his beer as Isaias lit another cigarette. Now, you know the neighborhood she lives in, right? Yeah, the East Side projects, right? Right. Jules set his mug down, the condensation leaving a ring on the battered tabletop. So, we go to check it out. The scene flickered back to the dimly lit hallway of the project building, Jules and Ryam making their way cautiously down the corridor. So I go to check it out. She follows behind me 'cause she's scared and shit, Jules narrated, his voice slicing through the memory. Refocusing on the present, he leaned in closer to Isaias. Apparently, one of the crackheads OD'd. Isaias's brow furrowed. Did you guys go inside? Next door? Yeah, man, slow your roll. I'm getting to it. A wry grin tugged at Jules's lips as they shared a laugh. Isaias smirked. You take forever. Here comes your food. Now this will go on for another hour. Shut up, Jules retorted without malice as the waitress reappeared, placing a steaming plate of nachos before him. You guys still good? She inquired. Isaias nodded, while Jules turned his plate clockwise with meticulous precision. Yes, ma'am. As she retreated, his gaze lingered on the sway of her hips. Crackheads? Isaias prompted, snapping Jules's attention back. Right, crackheads. The memory resurfaced, transporting them to the squalid interior of the crack house. Jules's voice echoed, setting the scene. I go inside and make sure everything's all right. The first thing I see is a group of people surrounding this young guy. Supposedly, he used to be in the army and was kicked out. Sympathy flickered across Isaias's face. Poor guy. Poor guy is right, Jules affirmed, shoveling nachos into his mouth. 'Cause he was dead. Isaias recoiled, his eyes widening. What? Undeterred, Jules continued eating as he recounted the grim scene. Yeah, dead. Ryam is crying her eyes out, and the rest of the crackheads are huddled around him. None of them know what to do. They said he was shooting up and then started popping pills. What did you do? Isaias probed, his voice hushed. Jules paused, setting his fork down. When we got over there, he was already dead. The screams came 20 minutes after. Isaias shook his head in disbelief. Wow, they didn't even notice. No, they didn't. Jules's expression grew somber, and he leaned back, allowing the weight of his words to sink in. Crazy story. Isaias's brow furrowed. Izzy, that's not the whole story. Intrigued, Isaias leaned in closer as the scene shifted once more. I go to take a look at the body to see if there's anything I can do. Jules's voice echoed, his gestures accentuating the memory. I move some of the crackheads out of the way. He mimicked shoving the junkies aside. Move, crackhead. Their laughter rang out, a momentary respite from the gravity of the tale being spun. The grimy scene flickered back into focus, Jules's voice guiding the memory. I check his pulse. No pulse. I open his eyes. They're rolled back. I check his arms. Fucking needle marks everywhere. Jules paused, the weight of the moment settling between them before he continued. I put my hand on his chest to feel his heart, 'cause what else can I do? Isaias leaned forward, realization dawning. You didn't call the cops. A sardonic smile tugged at the corner of Jules's mouth. The boys in blue never come out that way. I'm only there 'cause I'm undercover. The crack house materialized around them once more. So 10 minutes go by. I look around, and at this point, everyone is praying. They formed a circle behind me. Isaias's eyes widened. Wow. Jules's expression grew solemn. And guess what? What? Isaias leaned in, bracing himself. He fucking wakes up. The scene sprang to life, the veteran's eyes fluttering open as he rolled over, his body racked with ragged coughs. Jules was at his side in an instant, helping him sit upright on the tattered couch. Yep, he rolls over and coughs. I help him up and sit him on the couch, Jules narrated, his voice tinged with awe. Everyone's crying. He just sat there like nothing. He looked around and asked what happened. The veteran's gaze swept the room, confusion etched into his haggard features. What happened? Isaias locked eyes with Jules, the question hanging in the air between them. Did you tell him? Jules gave a solemn nod. I told him you've been dead for 35 minutes. He didn't believe it. A pause. He started bawling. The rawness of the moment hung heavy, the silence stretching between them as they grappled with the gravity of Jules's words. The veteran's body convulsed with sobs, his anguished cries echoing through the crack house as the reality of his near-death experience washed over him. Isaias's brow knitted with concern. That's crazy, man. Jules nodded solemnly, his expression grave. That's not the whole story. Exasperated, Isaias dragged on his cigarette. You're killing me, Jules. Undeterred, Jules pressed on. He starts going into detail of what he saw. The scene shifted once more, the veteran's haunted eyes boring into Jules as he drew him closer, his words little more than a ragged whisper. I've seen something no man should ever see. Isaias leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. Detail of what? Jules's gaze dropped to the table, his voice heavy with foreboding. Hell. An uneasy silence settled between them, the weight of the veteran's cryptic revelation hanging thick in the air. Isaias swallowed hard, his mind racing with unspoken questions as he waited for Jules to continue his harrowing tale. Moments ticked by in heavy silence as the weight of the veteran's revelation hung in the air between them. 2 empty beer glasses sat before Jules, a third still half full, while Isaias nursed a fresh glass of wine, the ashtray before him overflowing with smoldering cigarette butts. Jules leaned back, his expression distant as he recounted the harrowing details. Besides it being all dark, he said he must have walked for miles with his arms outstretched, trying to find something, anything. A pause, the gravity of his words sinking in. He said there was a terrible burning smell. Isaias took a steadying sip of wine, his gaze fixed on his friend. When he finally saw some light, people were just standing there. Jules continued, his voice lowering to a hushed rasp. Then suddenly, bam, they were getting shot and stabbed, but no one was doing it. It was just happening. They all were faceless and on fire as he passed them. The screams were so loud. A shudder rippled through Jules's body as he recalled the graphic imagery. He began to be pushed. He was taken to a red room. Dude, his face at this time was pure white. You could tell he saw something pure evil. Isaias shifted in his seat, hanging on every word. He said there was a massive chair facing the wall. The only thing he could see was a thick black shadow on the wall. He literally started to shake. Jules paused, the memory replaying vividly in his mind's eye. This is where he grabbed me. So now he has his hands on my collar. He comes close and says he saw the face of the person sitting on the chair. Isaias held his breath, bracing himself for the chilling revelation. He saw the devil. A tremor ran through Isaias's body as the implication of those words settled over him. How did he get out of it? He yelled, "Jesus, help me!" Isaias's brow furrowed in disbelief. What? Jules gave a solemn nod. Yeah, man, he said he saw Jesus' hand reach down and grab him. Realization dawned on Isaias's features. That's when he woke up. That's when he woke up, Jules affirmed, his voice thick with the weight of the veteran's surreal experience. Wow. Isaias shook his head, struggling to process the horrific tale. Jules took a contemplative sip of his beer. That's something, huh? Yeah, Isaias murmured, his mind still reeling. A hard glint flashed in Jules's eyes. You know who's in charge of those pills he was popping. Isaias met his gaze evenly. No, who? Louis C. A knowing nod. Figures. He's taking over that area. I heard you're having some problems with him. Isaias's jaw tensed. I heard that too. The word on the street is that you've been messing with his clientele. Jules's tone carried an undercurrent of warning. A humorless laugh escaped Isaias's lips. I guess helping the unfortunate is a crime nowadays. He's pissed, Jules pressed on. He's been dealing in those streets for a while. All his regulars who used to sell for him are not coming around. I think he laced those pills. I really do. He's the type of guy who'd rather see those people die than not buy from him. Disgust flickered across Isaias's features. He likes being in control. He preys on the vulnerable. A beat passed before he fixed Jules with a pointed look. Who told you about his issues with me? His henchman Wolf. That guy's a sneaky bastard. Isaias shook his head grimly. I'm not going to try to get involved. Listen, Isaias. Jules leaned forward, his expression earnest. You're one of my best friends, and I know you're helping these people. But I think you should just work a different route. In what I'm doing, I can't get made, or I'll be taken out too. Isaias's jaw tightened with resolve. I'm trying to make a difference. I know. Jules's voice softened. I'm in the same boat. But when Louis C. says something, people listen. He has a lot of power. The unspoken threat hung heavy between them, a silent acknowledgement of the perilous path they trod. Isaias held Jules's gaze, his expression etched with solemn resolve. I know you're looking out for me, and I love you for that. Trust me, I do. You're like my brother. He paused, fortifying himself against the weight of his next words. But I can't change the way I feel about these people. I know how he works, and I know he may want to make an example of me. If that's the case, so be it. Jules recoiled as if struck, his eyes flashing with anger. So be it. I put my neck on the line for you, man. I'm not going to sit here and watch my friend die over some crackheads. The words hung heavy in the air, a palpable tension crackling between them. Isaias's jaw tightened, and he took a steadying drag on his cigarette before crushing it into the overflowing ashtray. Some crackheads? His voice was low, tinged with a simmering anguish. I lost my mother to drugs. The scene shifted abruptly, plunging them into the dimly lit confines of Lila's apartment. She sat hunched at the table, her tattered nightgown clinging to her emaciated frame, her hair a tangled thicket, framing her gaunt, sunken cheeks. Isaias entered, his presence barely registering as he made his way to the kitchen. The familiar routine unfolded, the creak of the fridge door, the glug of water filling a glass, the rush of the tap as he washed his hands. Did you get a chance to eat? He called out, his voice laced with concern, a beat of silence. Mom? Cradling the glass and bottle, he joined her at the table, his brow furrowed with worry. Did you get what I asked? Lila's vacant eyes bored into him as he poured the water, her raspy voice slicing through the stillness. What are those? Esaias reached into his pocket, withdrawing a small handful of pills. These are to help with your sweats and shakes at night. He pushed two towards her. Here, take them. Wordlessly, she complied, tossing back the pills and chasing them with a gulp of water. Let me see, Esaias prodded gently. Obediently, Lila stuck out her tongue, a flicker of hopeful lucidity crossing her features. Is that good? Esaias's expression softened with a bittersweet amalgam of love and sorrow. I just want to see you get better. Can I get some money? Her request was abrupt, jarring in its singular focus. No. Lila's eyes narrowed, her voice edged with petulance. What do you mean, no? I mean, I take care of you, Esaias countered, his tone firm yet tinged with infinite patience. You don't need money. But what if I want something? A weary sigh escaped his lips. Mom, I get you whatever you want. Her gaze hardened, the fragile veneer of reason cracking. Then how come you didn't give me what I wanted? Anguish flashed across Esaias's features as he reached into his pocket once more, withdrawing a handful of needles and laying them on the table before her. Lila snatched them up, clutching them to her chest as she began to rock back and forth, her body consumed by the relentless craving. Tears stung Esaias's eyes as he rose, enveloping his mother's frail form in a desperate embrace, his love a lifeline tethering her to the world she was so hell-bent on escaping. The weight of Esaias's revelation hung thick in the air between them. I know he wants to take me out in front of the community, he murmured, his voice heavy with grim acceptance. A pregnant pause stretched before he continued, his gaze locking with Jules's. I know you've been working with him. I could tell by his stupid symbol he makes all of his runners get tattooed. Esaias's eyes flickered to Jules's right hand, where the other man instinctively brushed his ring finger, the permanent etching of the Chinese character for devil, searing his skin like a brand. I know you're protecting me, Esaias pressed on, his expression softening with understanding. And those people deserve a chance. He leaned forward, conviction burning in his eyes like twin smoldering embers. That's why I called you here. I need you to go over there and tell him where I'll be. The words slammed into Jules with the force of a physical blow. No, he growled, recoiling from the suggestion as if burned. Unflinching, Esaias met his gaze head-on. He needs to come get me. Jules shook his head vehemently, his features contorting with desperation. No, you're crazy. Yet Esaias remained steadfast, his resolve unshakable. Jules, I'd rather die for those people than let them become something they're not. Anguish twisted Jules's expression as he grappled with the unthinkable reality Esaias laid bare before him. Without you, they'll go back to him. No, they won't, Esaias countered, his voice soft yet unyielding in its quiet conviction. Their eyes will be open. Jules searched his friend's face, his heart fracturing under the unbearable weight of Esaias's request. Are you asking me to let you die? A solemn shake of his head. No, I'm asking you to let them live. The gravity of those words settled over them like a suffocating shroud as Jules struggled to process their implication. So you want me to go tell Louis C. where you'll be? Esaias's response was a wordless nod of affirmation. Despair clawed at Julie's throat as tears stung his eyes. And I'm supposed to be okay with this? For a moment, Esaias's unflappable demeanor wavered, his expression softening with understanding and a touch of sorrow. Jules, what I'm doing is bigger than both of us, but I need you to trust me. Jules dragged a hand over his face, his anguish etching deep lines in his features as he wrestled with the crushing weight of Esaias's request. Your death will be on my conscience. How am I supposed to deal with that? A weighted silence hung between them before Esaias spoke, his voice barely above a whisper yet resonating with profound absolution. All is forgiven. At a loss, Jules could only shake his head, his throat constricting around the torrent of words that refused to take shape. Isaias rose from his seat, dropping a wad of crumpled bills onto the table before shrugging into his hooded jacket. "Don't say anything," he murmured, his tone laced with a strange mixture of finality and compassion. He paused beside Jules, resting a hand on his shoulder in a silent farewell that spoke volumes. Then, with one last measured look, he turned and strode toward the exit, the sunlight spilling through the open door, bathing him in a resplendent glow for a fleeting moment, before he disappeared from view. Jules remained motionless, marooned in the profound silence, adrift in a sea of tumultuous emotion as the full weight of Isaias' sacrifice threatened to crush him beneath its enormity. Shadows danced across his face, sculpting the anguish etched into his features as he stared unseeingly into the distance, grappling with the grim reality that was now his alone to bear.